Welcome to the most overrated, underappreciated, most viewed, underviewed podcast of all time. Welcome to the Prince of Fresh Air. This is your host, the most charismatic man in entertainment, aka Mr. Tall Glass of Water. What a special guest, a guy I went to college with, St. Bonaventure University, a fellow actor who is doing tremendous success. I want to welcome Paul Maurizio. How you doing, man?
Percy, great to be here, my man. Good seeing you again. I haven't seen you since graduation. It's crazy, you know? It's crazy that we're having this conversation. Who would have thought in 2020 I'd be sitting across from you virtually
Right,
doing this, you know?
right. Yo, it's been 2 years, 2018, and I know, from experience, there's a lot of people that you think you'd, stay connected with. And then after you graduate, it kind of like, everybody goes to separate path and stuff like that. And then I noticed that you started acting. I was like, man, now we got some common ground there. So let's get right into it. Let's not bore the people, shall we? So, uh,
So
like I said before, we went to St. Bonaventure University. So, originally you didn't study acting, right?
never, nothing. No school plays, nothing.
So how did you so what did you study? Because I know you said you quit you decided to quit your desk job and pursue acting a year ago. So, what did you study and how did you come to that realization that acting was your passion?
Sure. Well, believe it or not, I got a degree in accounting. I stayed a semester after, got my MBA. Basically went into the workforce in the accounting industry, and it didn't take me more than a few months to realize like just the sitting at a desk thing, looking at a computer screen for 8 hours, like it wasn't worth it for me. It wasn't something I saw myself really, continuing doing. So
Right.
that was a point in my life where I was just like, I feel like I have to do something I actually care about to want to get out of bed in the morning and go, do it every day. And so I started thinking about things that I've always cared about. I've always been passionate about. Movies, as far as I can remember, had always, interested me. I've always been like a movie guy. I've always been fascinated by movies. They've always really like certain movies really just hit home for me,
Right.
and I'm sure you could relate to that feeling, It's just certain movies kind of changed your perspective or moved you in a certain way, and that always like held weight for me. So when I thought about it, like secretly in college, I kind of thought like kicked around the idea of becoming an actor, but in my own head, of course, you've got the negative part that's saying, how are you ever gonna do that? How does one even become an actor? I
Right.
should have sat down and talked to you, if anything. But I, to be honest with you, I was just too afraid to step out of my comfort zone, especially with something as extreme as acting is. So and I was just pretty shy to begin with. But um, yeah, no. So when I was working that desk job, I basically started taking acting classes at night once a week, and it was very, very scary, very intimidating. As I'm sure when you
Right.
probably
Right.
started doing that stuff, but yeah, I mean, I loved it. I loved it. I loved I left class buzzing with like a huge adrenaline rush, and I was all in. I was all in after that. And yeah, that's basically kind of what got the ball rolling.
So I want to unpack a lot of stuff because for me, the I started this podcast, to talk about controversial issues and stuff like that. But on the baseline of everything, without this podcast, I'm still an actor, and it's still something I do to this day. And I'm gonna pack that because there's a lot of things I want to address. But one of the things we was talking about off camera, and I mentioned this was, for me, on campus, St. Bonaventure, everybody knew I was an actor because I did all the school plays, I was studying theater, and even before then, I've been doing acting for almost 10 years now, and it's weird because a lot of people that study acting that I went to school with really aren't doing it anymore. Besides like one or two people, and then you see someone like you who's doing a complete different major, something that's very lucrative in terms of financial security, job security, and then you switched over to acting. So for a lot of people who want to do acting, who had that desk job, what is some advice you would give them?
I would just say, I mean, going off my experience, like, dude, I couldn't do it. I just physically could not do it. So for me, it was like that was the only other option. I just I couldn't stand going to work every day. I'll
Right.
be honest with you, and so it really pushed me to the edge where it's like I need to figure something out. Um, but yeah, I would just say don't if you've got something that you want to try, don't be afraid to try it. Life is short. You might as well, you know,
Right.
you find that you really love it like I did, and you can continue in some capacity with it, whether you want to go all in or whether you want to just do it as a hobby. But yeah, that's what I would say. If you want to try something, do it. What's the use in not?
Right. And I want to say, because I know it's different for everybody, but as young guys, it's easy for us to kind of pick up and leave. For me, I moved to California because I got so comfortable in New York City that I said, for me, if I stay here, I'm gonna get a little complacent. I'm not gonna push myself because I'm always gonna be home. And like you said, it's leaving that comfort zone. It's so easy to get wrapped up in the comfort. And one of the things I wanted to talk to you about was, you moved to New York City because you didn't live in New York City before. You lived in New York State, right? If I'm not
Correct.
mistaken.
Yep. Yep.
So how was that transition from leaving your hometown to New York City? Because I can tell you, and I'm sure you know this already, New York City is a complete different beast,
Sure.
and it's home to theater and stuff. But how was that transition for you?
Uh, so I mean, even before I knew I wanted to be an actor, I knew I always kind of wanted to live in New York City for however long. So it's been great, man. I'm really enjoying getting to, you know, just getting to know the city basically. With quarantine and with COVID, I've had a little more time to get to warm up to it than I normally would. So that's been cool. Like I'm kind of appreciative of that. Um, but so yeah, the transition for me hasn't been too bad because I've even before I moved here, I've been here a number of times, and I kind of knew what to expect going in. But there's still been, there's always surprises. There's always stuff that changes up on you. I mean, it's the city, you know how it is. So,
Right.
but I can't lie. It's been pretty smooth sailing. But I gotta say, I kind of knew what I was getting myself into, um, before I
Right.
moved. Yeah.
And that's important because I one of the things I've talked about in my early episodes, because I really haven't done a lot of acting stuff on this podcast specifically, but one things I talked about is if you want to be an actor, you have to do classes, you have to get experience, because the difference is, there's a lot of actors, everybody's an actor, but a lot of people don't get the education, they don't study, they don't go out and get and do the work, get their hands dirty, which is very important. And so, for you, because I know you took in classes and you have an agent now, um, how was that process for you, being in the classroom and learning? Because from experience, especially at the level I am now, I've been through it all. You get into class, you're very nervous. When it's time, your time to get on camera, you shake up, you freeze up. It's very intimidating. But how did you learn to cope with that and to translate that into becoming the actor you are now?
Yeah, man, I mean, to be honest with you, I'm still coping with it. Anytime I do anything acting related, I can't help but get nervous. But I found that the more I do it, the more I throw myself into the fire.
Uh huh.
The easier it gets, just like with anything else. You got to face your fears. That's the biggest thing. I'm glad you brought up stepping out of your comfort zone. It's a similar thing. The more you step out of your comfort zone, the more you face your fears, the better equipped you are to handle those in the future. So I've just found like the more I throw myself out there, the more, as uncomfortable as it is, and as much as I don't want to do some of the crazy shit they make you do, like,
Yeah, yeah.
oh, sometimes you just got to do it though. When you've got a job, it's your job. When you've got a job to do, you do it. But yeah, it can be tough. It can be a tough pill to swallow sometimes. But I've found that the more you do it, the better off you are. The easier it gets. But it takes time for sure.
Yo, so let me ask you something because I got in a conversation with someone at Bonaventure when we was there about this. There's a misconception about acting that it's the easiest job in the world that anybody can pick up and do it. And as someone, because I had this conversation with someone who's in the business, realm of life.
Sure.
Do you think it's as easy as people make it seem like? Do you find it very challenging? And because memorizing lines is one thing, but to memorize lines, study the script, understanding character and the relationships, and then doing the scene and knowing these terms, you're like make sure you hit your mark. What is stage left, stage right?
Mm.
Um, do you find it hard?
Yeah, dude. Yeah, bro. For sure, for sure. There's no doubt. If it was easy, everyone would be doing it. You know what I mean? Like, there's no doubt it's hard work. You have to really understand people and be able to analyze people. You could. Once you get your character, there's so many questions to be asked. There's so much, you know, soul searching and deep diving into what you think that a character's about, and you have to think about what they want, what they want from the other person, what they're hiding maybe. I just like what's crazy to me is like playing a role where you want you kind of want to mask your intentions, but you want to mask your character's intentions, but um yeah, no, you mask their intentions.
100%. Yeah.
You're thinking about what they're thinking on the inside, but you're still not showing it. Like, that shit is hard, man. That's hard work. Like, you really got to take your time and really analyze the character, and analyze, basically connect with that character in a way that is believable. So yeah, no, I think it's very hard work, man. It's very hard work. You could still call me a beginner, uh, but I've been working really hard to just try and get caught up to speed. You know what I mean? It's hard work for sure.
100%. And even someone like me, I've been doing it for years, and there's always something to learn. And I was watching a video with Leonardo DiCaprio, and he was talking about that. Like, it's always a journey that you have to constantly learn, because people think from Chris Hemsworth to Denzel Washington that it just comes easy, and it's not. It's a lot of hard work, preparation that comes with it, and like you said, believable. Some people think that playing a homeless man is easy, but when you make it believable for the camera, when people go to the movie theaters and watch it, they want to see you be that person. They don't want to see you acting homeless, because it
Sure,
takes away from the realization of, yeah, it's a movie, but I want to see a real character. You know what I'm saying? I want to see some guy pretending to shiver. I want to see him actually cold.
sure.
Um, uh, so one thing I want to ask you: what is one misconception about acting that you thought of before that now you realize is very true? You know,
Yeah, I know what you mean. That's a good question because I feel like I've had about a million of them, but probably forgot about a lot of them just because I'm deeper into it now, But let me think. Like the very base. So, just acting as a concept, like you're, you kind of, I don't know. I wasn't totally sure how one goes about acting. Did they base it off of past experiences and connect that way, or did they just are they just really good at pretending? You know what I mean? Or like,
right?
for if so, I mean, for instance, in real life, I'm not a very emotional person. I don't, I'm pretty even keel, pretty, stay at one level. So I always thought about, what if I had to cry on set on camera? How would I go about doing that? You know, is there like some magic trick that the director uses? Does he give you like fake tears or something? I mean, I'm that could be the case too, but like I just learned that you have to take yourself to, you know, probably a very dark place or whatever the hell it makes you cry, you know, but you have to take yourself there. And I didn't know that about acting before I got into it. You really have to find yourself in your character, you know, or in certain scenarios that the character plays. You have to be able to find yourself, which I think is awesome.
Oh man, you hit it right on that head because that was something I struggle with because I'm not an emotional person.
Mm,
Yeah, I make jokes and I get sad, but I'm not a crier.
sure.
And that's something that goes into knowing your type. Because there's some people who could cry in queue. That's some roles, require you to, cry on command. Others can't. Some people learn how to do it. Some people just stay away from those roles. So it's very important to understand how to connect on a personal level and a deeper meaning than just, oh, I'm homeless. Okay. I see homeless on the street all the time. So let me just act like I'm making a sign and begging for money. And it's much deeper than that because for a lot of actors, when they play Marines, they play cops, they play drug addicts. What they do is they go to these circumstances, they go to police academies, they talk to people who've been homeless, and they get an understanding of what it was like from the mental aspect to the physical aspect. Um,
Right.
and that's important. I'm not saying everybody got to go out and start dropping 100 pounds to play a homeless person, but just to understand what their life was like is very hard. And for me, it's been something I have to talk to people about because people think acting is just this glory. You make a tons of money, and you just live a life of doing free, non hard work, and that's
Yeah.
far from the case. Um, so for you, as you transition into, doing this full time and stuff like that,
Mhm.
how has that journey been for you? Because one of the biggest issues that a lot of actors face is, finding the balance of being able to, pay the bills and, do your craft. It's a hard thing to do. So for you, how has that been? How that journey been for you?
It's been it's been fairly smooth, you know, fairly smooth sailing. There's been a few bumps in the road, but it's definitely so I mean, right now, um right now, since I moved to New York, I haven't been working, so you know it's been nice to collect the unemployment and all that.
Hell yeah.
Off riding the unemployment express. But it's been a godsend, man. Like I wouldn't be here without it. So I mean that's been good, and it's allowed me plenty of time to work on my craft and get better. And you know, I'm doing some sort of acting thing for a few hours a day, 5 days a week. So you know, it's allowing me the time to get stuff done. So thankfully, you know, there obviously not an ideal scenario, especially you know for someone like me who's kind of just starting out. Um, but you know, it could be worse. So I'm thankful for that. And but yeah, no, there will come a time where I'll have to put my waiting skills to the test and probably do something like that, you know, just jobs, whatever I can find to pay the bills. But the main goal is that I have something that's flexible enough to allow me the time to focus on acting.
Right. And I want to touch on that because it's something that is very important. It's something that a lot of people struggle with, especially when you first start out, because, and I'm going to touch on the agent thing because I know you have one too. When I moved to California, one of the biggest issues I was facing was how can I find a job that's flexible and allow me to continue? Because, if your agent sends you an audition for Netflix, you going to go. I mean, for some people, it's a matter of how I'm gonna pay bills next in a couple weeks. But when your agent sends you an audition, you have to make it. Um, and if you don't, then you risk getting dropped. And one of the things I want to tell you or people who are listening and want that advice, it would be put your career first. You know, I know acting is hard and it's a struggle. Rejection is part of life. Um, but you have to make your career first because I found that a lot of actors from California to New York, the biggest issue they face is um putting their career first. They'd rather go to work than go to the audition because they're in fear of not having enough money to pay their rent or pay the credit card bills, and that's is what's most important. When I moved here, right now, even before the pandemic, for me, my job was secondary. If I have an audition, I'm going because I didn't move here to work, and I I put that first. If tomorrow let's say I pick up a job and my agent says, "Hey, you have an audition at 2 o'clock." Well, I guess I'm going to work late because you know it's a mental challenge to do that. And I understand
Mm,
bills need to be paid, but save. I want to tell you right now, save your
yeah,
money because a lot of people, spending money on clothes and cars, which is fine. I get that. But if you don't have that safety net where you can, not go to work and still be fine, that's a big difference. And for a
mm,
lot of people, they don't have that safety net. So that's just one advice I give you: is just find a job that understands
yeah,
your situation. Because in California, a lot of jobs know people move here or live here and they are actors, they're musicians, or
yeah,
they do some type of artistic career, so they understand that situation. So it's not really that hard to find a job that understands that you got auditions that come up at a drop of a dime. So actually, before I even talk about the agent thing, how has that impacted your life from personal relationships and stuff? Because one of the issues with actors that they come across is the fact that because auditions aren't, you don't find out a week in advance. It's a drop of a dime.
mm.
Has that played a part in your life socially, with friends, and having that balance in life?
Well, not so much yet, just by virtue of it being, the industry kind of being slow with COVID and everything. So I haven't really. I honestly, I was. It's funny you asked that because I've definitely thought of that, like how it's going to impact my social life. But so far, not really though, because I have nowhere to go quite yet. I mean, I know things are slowly getting back to normal, but to be honest with you, I haven't faced that now. With the agent, I would anticipate that things are going to start picking up a little bit, which is exciting. But yeah, man, I mean, I think I've gotten a lot of good support from the people in my life, so I think I think it'll be an all right transition when the time comes.
How did your parents react when you decided to pursue acting? Because I know that's a
Oh,
big one.
yeah, man. To be honest with you, they are fairly cool about it. I got to give them a lot of credit.
Before we get right back into the action, thank you for tuning in to another charismatic episode. Um, if you are interested on being on the Prince of Fresh Air podcast, you can hit me up on Instagram at Mr. Dot No Days Off Percy. Again, that's Mr. Dot No Days Off Percy. You can also go to anchor.fm/ the Prince of Fresh Air, the homepage. You can also find my social media links there. And if you're also interested in sending in voice messages or donating, you can also do that as well. I would love to use the proceeds to go to a local food bank or a warmer house, and I can take up to $10,000. I'm not gonna complain. But yeah, thank you for tuning to another episode. Let me know your thoughts and opinions, what I can improve, or something that you enjoy, and let's get right back to the action, shall we?
Said I was in the accounting industry. I dropped I left that, and I was getting paid pretty comfortably for a first job out of college, so but they're surprisingly not they're pretty cool about it. I give them a lot of credit. I definitely appreciate it. Especially like when I told them the news about the agent, my dad's like, go get him, man. Like, uh, just keep working hard and keep doing your thing. I'm proud of you. So It's cool. I'm lucky.
That's good, man. I can tell you right now, my mom is like, even to this day, I've been doing it for a while, but even she'd be like, yeah, maybe you should be a lawyer. It's one of those things. It's hard because acting is one of those professions where there's not a lot of job security until you make it, and there's a lot of
Sure.
sacrifices. I'll tell you right now, moving to California has been tough. I mean, I can deal with it because this is my passion, but for a lot of people, it's hard, and they end up moving back because you end up in a spot where you can't afford to be partying on
Right.
Friday nights because for me if I get an audition for HBO on Saturday at 10 a.m. I'm gonna be too hungover to memorize those lines, and it becomes a
Right.
uh, it's hard, and you experience this as you start moving up that it becomes a very I have to start spending more time by myself because you never know what's going to come from it.
Sure.
But on that note, let's talk about agent because getting an agent can be very tricky and
Mm.
it's hard to attain. So just having an agent alone, I mean, it's a hats off to you because there's a lot of people who want that position. Uh, how has having an agent helped you, and how is that process of getting one for you?
Yeah, man, I feel really lucky because I think, I'm pretty early in the game, and to land representation, I feel pretty fortunate about that. So, you know, um,
As you should, as you should.
yeah, yeah, I definitely am not taking that for granted. But yeah, so the process really, it wasn't as bad as it could have been. It wasn't too bad. So I back in March, I began working with this woman by the name of Joanne Moscone, and she took me from like, enough like someone who had no acting skills whatsoever, and molded me into a guy who now has an agent. So I give all the credit to her. She's been great with me, and I really appreciate what she's done. But basically, she put in a good word for me. She kind of stuck her neck out for me and told her friend who's an agent and said, "Listen, this kid's working hard. He does everything I tell him. He's getting good. Why don't you you know take a look and give him a call?" So I over the summer I talked to Sylvia. Sylvia's my agent. And she kind of felt me. It was kind of more of a feeler meeting than anything, just kind of asking me what I've done up to this point and where I'm at, where I'm trying to go. And then Sylvia recently got promoted within her firm. She was just a youth talent agent, and then the promotion allowed her to go after non-youth actors. So once that happened, she called me again and told me that she was very interested in signing me. And then I had a Zoom performance hosted by my acting coach Joanne. um, and she came. We invited Sylvia to it. This was last week. And then after the performance, Sylvia's like, "Let's go. Let's do this." So that was that. So luckily, I had the connection, to kind of make that. I kind of had an introduction to the agent, which again, thanks to Joanne, that was awesome. So it wasn't like I was out there just like fishing basically and trying to figure out what I could, catch
Right.
in terms of finding an agent. But
See,
yeah,
that's nice that you said because we have a completely two different ways how we got it. For you it was through connections, and I
sure.
have some good connections in the business, and I reached out to people like that. But when I first moved here, I said I'm gonna put this as a priority. So for me, uh, you know, I was actually reaching out to a few people because I have a buddy who's pretty high up in the business, and he was able to help me out in that aspect. But for me, when I went to meet with my agent, we actually bonded over our love for MMA. He's my main agent, Chris Roth. I have to give him a shout out because he's an amazing dude. He does like judo during the week, and
Oh,
I love kickboxing, so we bonded over that, and we came to understanding. And one of the things I wanted to ask you was, there's an idea in acting that you just have to be an actor. So one of the conversations that I had with my agent was, okay, if we're gonna do this, you can't just be an actor. You're gonna audition for commercials. You're gonna audition for voiceovers. You're gonna do anything and everything we can get you. And
Mm,
a lot of actors find that to be tough. And I'm not sure if you ever done it yet, but is that something that you would be into? Because a lot of actors don't. They just want to be actors. But in this business, you kind of have to do a charade of a whole
sure.
different things to kind of get that break that you want.
Sure. Yeah. No, I'm open and to do what I think at the end of the day, it's all good exposure, right? You know, you can meet people. But to be honest with you, like, yeah, no, I mean, commercial acting to me isn't why I love acting. You know, it doesn't have the part of the aspect of acting that I, fell in love with.
Right.
So if I have to do a commercial, or if I'm lucky enough to get the opportunity to do a commercial, sure. But it's not my preferred thing to do. I feel like voiceovers would be cool. I never tried that, but I feel like that could be cool. But yeah, no, if it pays the bills and keeps me busy and it's a great way to network with people, sure, I'm open to it. But my primary interest is like you said, I want to be an actor first. If
Right.
I have a choice between acting in a film or a series versus going to a commercial shoot, I'm gonna take the film or series times out of 1,000. So
Yeah, I'll tell you. So, I used to be in the same position you were, not that even long ago. Um, and it was something I never even thought of. Voice acting commercials, like I knew about it, but I was like, I never really thought I'd do it. And then, over the course of the year, and the pandemic. Shout out to pandemic for ruining people's plans, but nonetheless, it's it's one of those things where it's all connected in a sense because voiceovers teach you how to use your voice. Commercials teach you how to be more centered and grounded. So it's something I'm still learning. It was not something I always learned to how to do commercials. I come from a theater background. So
sure.
theater and TV and commercials and voiceovers are all different things. And I think it's very important for actors to get that experience because you're going to get to a place where, where I am now, where you it's just part of the job. You know what I'm
Sure.
saying? Whether it's for, a small company, which rarely happens, for Netflix, for CBS, for Fox, all of this stuff, if you say no to it, not only your agent going to drop you, but you lose out on the opportunity not only to make some money, but just the experience of it. Even if you never book anything, just to have that experience of it is very important. Um, and
Yeah, no, man. I agree with you there. I definitely I don't want to make it seem like I would turn like a commercial role down. I for sure I wouldn't. I would not. But yeah, no. I guess I was trying to say I'm more geared to like I would look for more the actor roles than the commercial
yeah,
voiceover.
oh no, and I wasn't trying to say that you're not trying to take those roles.
Oh
I'm just
yeah,
saying
yeah, yeah.
in general, a lot of actors don't think about that. I never thought about it until I started doing that. I'm like, what? I actually enjoy it. I actually
Yeah.
enjoy doing this stuff.
I never
Um,
thought about it that way either. How you could kind of use they all develop different skill sets that are useful as an actor. So that's cool. I never thought about it that way.
it's a
Uh,
lot of levels to this.
sure.
Um, do you have any questions for me, especially in your journey? Any advice that you want, or any questions about the business that you have?
Man,
Feel
put me
free. I'm an
on,
open book.
put me on the spot. Percy, I know I have questions. I know I do. Whether I can think of them right now in my tiny brain is another thing. But I would I've got your I think I have your number. Yeah, I did get your number a while ago. So I'm definitely gonna hit you up whenever like I have questions. I feel like I haven't actually gotten myself like deep enough into acting in New York yet to quite have the questions, because I know you have that experience. Um, and that's more the stuff I would have questions about too. It's just like when you're physically there on set, you know what I mean? But for right now, man, I can't think of anything. Shit.
So, since you said set, I want to say something real quick about that because that's something that I talk about, especially on the YouTube side.
Mm.
When it comes to being on set, one of the biggest things is preparation, and I say that because um, I used to do background. I never knew what it was like to be on a big movie set with all the cameras, all the crew, and it's
Yeah,
hard. Theater is different in the sense that you get to practice, you get to rehearse, and then, I've had moments, not me, but I've seen people mess up on stage on a live performance, and it is the worst thing
sure.
I've ever seen. But when it
Okay.
comes to like TV and film, it's very different. It's hard for people to act when you have so many different eyes on you and you don't have that 6 weeks of preparation to do. Obviously you'll prepare, a couple weeks before your gig,
Yeah,
but to film in front of 15 to 20 people. um One of the things I was going to talk about was the difference between like student films and big films. So as someone who's done a plethora of student films,
mm,
when I first started, it's a little easier. And I would recommend you. I know you have an agent and stuff, but I would recommend you have the opportunity to do student films because not only is it a teachable
sure.
moment, there's more footage for your reel, and you get to understand how to take direction from directors, get that sense of community where while you're trying to get ready for the scene, you have people running around touching your makeup, making sure your equipment is all fixed, and people fixing the environment around you. Um, and then I will also say do background because that's a big thing. Even though you may not have lines most of the time, um, it's definitely important to see how everything moves. I think for a lot of people, don't get stuck into it. Background, it's fun after like two, three, four times, but
Yeah,
don't make it a habit. Just to do it just to understand the process of making a movie because people think it's all glamorous, and I can tell you right now, being on set for 15 hours for a lot of people, it's a doom breaker for them. Like they love acting, but they couldn't
yeah,
imagine being on set for 15 hours. It's a tough thing. And then as someone who's also done feature films, it's very different. Student films are more relaxed, more lenient. And then when
yeah.
you start introducing budgets, introducing more cast members, more crew, it's tough, especially when you have to get to location and you have to really bring your A game. Student films, they can work with you on the spot. Feature films, they'll work with you, but when you have a budget and you have a certain amount of time, you could be at a spot. They expect a different level of professionalism. Um, Not to spook you, but I just want you to
Uh,
know that as you start climbing the ranks, it becomes more competitive in terms of professionalism. So um, definitely do more student films because it teach you that foundation. And then as you start climbing, obviously, once you have an agent, you start getting more high paid, more secured work.
right.
um, but yeah, definitely take the time, especially for you. For me, I'm not really going to do student films anymore because I'm at a spot where I don't really need to anymore. Um, but that like just get your feet wet. A lot of
Yeah,
actors, they get in the sense of when they have an agent, the work stops, and they just wait for the agent to get
right.
you work. Don't fall into that trap. I'm not saying don't do everything agent tells you, but don't be afraid to be like, you know what, it's a little slow. Maybe I want to go find something for me to do. Take the opportunity to do it yourself because a lot of people lose that self promotion and that self worth of going from doing everything on your own to having someone do the work for you. So that's very key. I would say for you. Um,
Appreciate that, man. No, that makes a lot of sense too. Yeah, I have thought like I feel like you were saying with the extras, like I feel like it's not something I necessarily would have to do, but like you said, it's good to see the rhythm of how everything happens, how a movie's made.
yeah, it's extra work. It has a negative connotation to it, not
Yeah,
because of the work. But if you're trying to be an actor, there's a lot of actors I know who join a union and say they're actors, but they only do background work. And it's like, I
Right.
understand it, but when you go to an agent, they don't want to hear that you was background number 550.
Sure. Sure.
Uh, but it's just important to understand it because I've said this in one of my early episodes when I started this podcast. When it comes to acting, um, experience is very important. And a lot of people say they're actors, and this goes beyond extra work. Don't think there's a lot more actors than you think. A lot of people think acting is millions of people. There are a lot of people in it, but it's not nearly as much as you think. Because
Yeah.
for one of you, there's about 30 others that just sitting on the couch eating Doritos, waiting for the next opportunity to get to them. So while you're progressing, getting an agent in a short amount of time, there's people who's been doing this 5 years haven't done anything. Maybe one student film. So, you know, um, another thing I would say rejection. I'm gonna tell you right now. It might be easier now. As you start out, you'll get a little more work, but when you get to when you started preaching the level where I am, when you audition for big companies, there's a lot of rejection. You're gonna be finding yourself doing amazing uh, audition tapes and doing some good work, and then you'll get casted. So be prepared for that. It's something that a lot of people don't really understand until they get to that point.
Sure.
But expect a lot of rejection, and don't take it personal because a lot of times it's just when you're, for instance, when you're casting a family for a show, they might like you, but if they say, I like this black actor a little more for the dad, it's going to be hard to cast you as a son. You know what I'm saying? So it's very multifaceted, especially when you start getting higher up in the rankings. Um, so that's one piece of advice I give you is don't take rejection personally, but take it as experience. Every audition that you do, every failed audition that you do, is all a learning experience. To get you more comfortable and to get you to a place of being more professional, more mature. So, you know, I'm still in my 20s, but a lot of people think I'm older because I have that experience of doing this for over 10 years.
Sure.
So, definitely that's some advice I give you too. Um,
That's dope, man. I appreciate that.
for sure, for sure. And one more thing, I'm going on a
Hey,
rant here.
oh, cool.
One more thing. You talked about having a type, and getting comfortable with certain roles.
Mm.
Um, what are some things that you're not willing to do, or you have trouble working with? You know what I'm saying? In terms of like
Yeah,
characters and
yeah, definitely. So I guess I mean people who are like I guess like emotional people, like I said before, like it's tough. I'm not a very open person, so it's gonna take a little bit of work for me when I have to do someone that's a little more open with their feelings and their emotions. It's definitely gonna take a little work for me because that's how I'm like a closed book pretty much. So that's like definitely something that I'm like I know it's gonna make me better if I deep dive into a character like that, but it's gonna take some work for sure.
Mhm.
Like that's something that people don't even realize. Like that's hard work, like manipulating yourself to kind of open up to your character more, like stuff like that. It's not easy, man. And like just making yourself vulnerable in front of people is tough. It's tough, but like I said, the more you do it, the easier it gets.
Definitely, and I'm still at a place where there's certain roles that, for
Sure.
me, because I'm not an emotional guy, I'm not going to
Yeah.
be able to cry on camera, on cue. I'm just that guy, and I think um, it comes important. I had this conversation with my agent, and I share this with you because I think it's important.
Mm.
Audition for everything that you get, no matter if you think it's stupid, you think it's silly, whether it's a clown in a costume or, you know, it's something that you never thought you'd do. Audition for it because even if you don't get that role, it's all a connection because for me, I go to a lot of the same casting offices, so a lot of them know me by now, and
Yeah.
so it becomes a process of oh, I know this dude. He may not be good for this role, but I know this a project that he would be good for. So it's a connection to that. And then also on top of that, when it comes to that kind of stuff, you have to be real with yourself. For me, it came to realization that I know I won't be able to crown Q no matter how much training or experience I get. I mean, assuming when I'm 45, it'll probably be a little easier. But for now, I know there's certain roles I won't take or I'm not suitable for. So I'll audition for it, but I won't take it because I know I can't bring my full self to that role or fully commit to it. Um, so definitely know your type because or be open to experiencing because as someone who's only 25, there might be times where I'll get auditions for 37-year-old dad. And I'm like, what? Never. But it's honestly a lot of the times, especially with acting, it's just because they see you as a certain role. So some people might see you as like a surfer dude, and then some people might be like, he looks like that guy next door. You know what I'm saying? So be
Yeah, yeah,
open and willing to do that. And
absolutely.
just because you're young, don't mean you can't play early 30s or there's countless times you'll see a bunch of 35-year-olds playing high school college students. It's weird, but it's just
Yeah, weird like that. Yeah.
yeah. So just be open because that's one of the things that a lot of actors fail is that they don't allow themselves to diverse in that aspect. Do
Yeah,
I want to play a 40-year-old dad? Absolutely not. I may not. I don't feel like a 40-year-old. I don't look like a 40-year-old, but who's going to turn down a nice $40,000 check? So
sure. And that's another thing I like about it is you could be anything you want. You could be something that you never thought you would ever be and do stuff you never thought you'd ever do. So yeah, no, I agree. That's actually one of the reasons why I like the job.
right now, let me ask you to cap this all off. What do you see yourself, Paul? Where do you see yourself in 5, 10 years? Like, what is your goal? Uh, what is your where do you see yourself in like 5 years?
Oh man, I don't know. Tough question.
And
I
I
would
ask that because as you start getting upper and like you might leave your agent to get a bigger one. That's a question a lot of them ask is, what do you see yourself? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? And they want you to answer that on the drop of a dime. So I'm just kind of preparing you for that question.
all right, Percy. I would, you know, just as a working actor, man, just as a guy who does his job, wakes up every morning and hopefully has, work to do. But I plan on it. I certainly plan on being busy. So I, you know, I mean, however far it takes me. But I just want to, wake up, love what I do something different every day, do something that keeps me on my toes, and just, get the most out of it that I possibly can.
Right. Now, I'm at two things. You said where I work in actors. That's great. A lot of people, when they get asked this question, the first thing they say is fame. And the
Mm,
reality of it is that everybody can't be Johnny Depp. Everybody can't be Robert Downey Jr. And there's plenty of actors who they might have a little bit of fame, but they're working actors, and that's very important. Um, because being a working actor don't mean you have to be in the limelight.
oh, yeah,
There's people who work every day and nobody knows them, but
yeah,
they make 500 a
sure,
$1 million a year just
yeah,
from acting. So that's very important. And then second, I would say I like your answer, but I think you should redefine it for yourself because for me, when people ask me what is my goal in 5 years, for me, I say I want to have at least two co-star leads. I want to have one national commercial down my belt. Now that's just a vague
sure,
generalization, but I think it's just important for you to find what you want because being a working actor is different for some people. Working acting could be booking one job a year or just still being in the business, you know what I'm saying? And that's not
yeah,
a knock on your answer. It's just for your own self, have that concrete because every day I wake up my goal is to book a national commercial. That's the first step. And then book a guest star or co-star role on a TV show. It's
mm,
just a very concrete way of thinking And I'm only telling you that because I know you're still early in your journey. But as you start getting a little older and you start getting more experience in the business, it becomes easier to hit, have a goal in mind and hit it than, be wide range. Because, in this business, it's good to be wide
I,
range, but set those marks for
no,
yourself. You know what I'm
I know.
saying?
I
You know?
agree with you. I agree with you. I think as I go, I'll figure that out more and I'll be able to, narrow down my answer for
Right,
you.
right, right. Yeah,
Yeah,
and I'm just telling you that because I used to be in that same place where it's like I just want to work, but
sure.
as you start progressing in career, you kind of have to start mapping out how you want to
I
get things
believe
done.
that. Yeah, I
Because
believe that.
we all want to join SAG, we all want to be, on top of the bill. But a lot of people don't have an idea how to get there. It's like a roadmap in a sense. So as you get further,
Yeah,
and like I said, I'm always willing to help other people because I've had people help me along the way. But definitely just define what that is for you, whether that's booking a feature film or having a solid reel or getting a better agent or booking a TV show. um just clearly define that as you start getting along,
uh,
what is precisely what your journey is going to be like. Because I
sure.
already know where I want to be. Whether I achieve it or not is one thing, but I already know in 5 years I have a list of things I want to accomplish in my journey. So, during the pandemic, a lot of people are struggling, to
Sure.
find out, what they want to do in life, and they're having like an epiphany. So for you as an actor and as a person, how has that changed for you? Have you changed the way how you approach acting? Is there certain things that you never thought you'd do that you decided to do, or have
Yeah,
you
yeah.
started like a your own personal like venture, like a podcast or YouTube channel, something like that?
No, yeah. So, I mean, I would say creatively, I'm at like an all-time high, man. I've been, dabbling with writing a screenplay and
Nice, nice.
yeah, actually, Drew Ward and Jason Claver, we've the three of us have like talked about doing something. We kind of put it on the back burner, but we're gonna revisit it. And yeah, just been doing some free writing, writing a little poetry here and there. I picked up a harmonica. Sean Hillary actually got put me on to playing a harmonica.
Sean Hillary.
Funny
Oh
guy,
god.
right? You
Yeah.
know, yeah, he's that kid's something else. But yeah, no, he's a good dude. He showed me how entertaining just like a little piece of metal could be. I haven't since I've lived in the city. I haven't played it as much, but or at all really, because close quarters. I got three
Right.
other mates. Gotta not make them want to blow out their ears. But yeah, just little things like that. Trying different things. But really, acting's been like my main thing. That's kind of my new hobby, if you will.
Right, right.
It's more than a hobby, but yeah, no, I mean, I'm just thankful that it's allowed me more time to work at getting better at acting and study it more. So I'm thankful for that.
That
Um,
that's
yeah,
amazing right there.
yeah,
That's
appreciate it.
great. I think I've talked to a few actors. A lot of them uh are struggling with that. A lot of them don't know what they want. They don't know how to achieve what they want, and that's a at
Yeah,
least you understand. Yeah, it's
there's
very
been
important.
tough days too. There's days where I'm like, what is any of this for? What's the point of what's the point of memorizing these lines so I can perform it over Zoom, over a webcam where it's not even gonna be an actual live performance, like so there's days that I question myself too. I'm like, what the hell am I doing? But at the end of the day, I know, there's an end goal and the struggle's worth it. So there definitely are tough days, especially with quarantine, with COVID, because the industry's largely, still not what it was before. And it can be tough. Some days could definitely be tough. So I didn't want to undersell that part too. But
It's tough,
yeah,
and one of the things I always tell people is find a way to express that because during this time is not a lot of gigs. And fortunately, my agent's been working hard to to find me opportunities, and I'm grateful for it. But find things um to express, to let out that creative. I started this podcast in June because I was getting tired of just waking up every day waiting for the next thing to come.
Yeah,
And
great idea,
now,
man.
yeah, it's taking on a life of its own. It's doing way better than I ever thought. Now I'm doing YouTube, and I tell my agents about this stuff, and they're like,
Well,
"Good
yeah,
for you that you're taking matters into your own hands because we in a time, especially right now, with a lot of actors who have agents, they bombard them. Where's the next audition? Is there any leads on some work and it becomes an issue of now you're dependent on somebody to give you work instead of seeking that work out for yourself. And I'm not saying you have to buy every subscription to every casting website.
right, right.
Speaking of which, do you know about? Have you used any casting websites or?
Yeah, so before the agent, I was all backstage, but since I've signed on, I've joined like three or four more new ones. So I got to get used to those and learn how those work now. But yeah, yeah, I know like three or four that I'm on right now, aside from backstage. But yeah, that's how backstage was really the only thing that kept me like engaged with any sort of student film opportunities or anything like that
Right.
up until a few days ago. So yeah,
Man, I think everybody from New York knows backstage if they're acting.
yeah, yeah,
That's how I got my start, and that's how I got to where I am because of backstage.
right,
And I would say one of the benefits of having an agent is that you don't have to pay for a lot of these websites,
sure,
especially
yeah,
the more like we have LA Cast. It's called
yeah.
uh what is
What
it?
casting
Cast and
network?
networks. I
Yeah,
always get that in
on
Central
that
Cast.
one.
Central Cast is a background cast website, but a lot of these other websites are could get pretty expensive. So to have
Sure.
somebody be able to pay for that,
Hell yeah, man. No.
uh, but any final words, anything that you want to get off your chest, where the people can find you?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram. I'm trying to post a little more on that. They tell me that that's the new wave. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
trying to get better with it. I've never been a big social media guy, but here I am trying to put myself out there a little more. But yeah, my handle's at Paul Maurizio. Um, let's see. I think that's about it. Just thanks for having me, brother. I appreciate it. It's been great. Great catching up with you, man.
One of the biggest things of acting is that people fail to realize that you are a brand. For me, my hair, the sunglasses is my
Yeah,
brand. I bring a certain energy to things and continue doing that because that's very important. Um, and for me, I'm glad I was able to have you on the show. 2 years since graduating, that we finally get to talk.
yeah,
Um, and this is going to be up on a podcast and YouTube as well. And anybody listening who want more acting advice, definitely check out my YouTube channel, The Prince of Fresh Air, where I post snippets of the podcast, but it's mostly acting centric. Um, and also, you can find me on social media at Mr. No Days Off Percy. And you can support this podcast by going to anchor.fm/The Prince of Fresh Air. You can send voice messages. You can donate $1,000, $10,000. I don't discriminate.
uh,
And like I always say, a helping hand is a better hand. Thank you, Paul.
thank you, Percy.